Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be doing some work using Stencilgirl stencils to create some portraits, which is always my favourite thing to do. So I'm starting off in my Dina Wakley journal, just putting in a really simple background, and I thought I'd go with pinks because I have got a thing for pink at the moment, which is really weird because it's never been my favourite colour. So I'm just mixing a few different colours together to get a bit of an interesting background. Start off with magenta and then a paler pink and a bit of blushing, which is sort of that peachy colour. And just drying off the background. And I wanted to make a sort of stenciled background, but I wanted it to be subtle. So I'm using this tropical flowers stencil from Stencilgirl, and I'm using neon pink paint to stencil over the top. So while it looks nice and bright, it is going to give a sort of subtle stencil pattern in the background. So just going in really carefully with my sponge, making sure that my sponge doesn't have paint sitting up on it. It's worked into the sponge, so you can see me tapping it out on the side, working it into the sponge. And then just an up and down motion. Finally, I'm just going in and drying that so it is heat set. I decided I wanted to add a little bit more detail into the background, so I'm just grabbing my white Posca paint pen and just with really sketchy lines, adding a little bit of detail. So just drawing around the outside of the flowers, putting in some of the flower centres. At this stage, while I knew I wanted to put a face over the top of this page, I wanted to make sure that you could still get the idea of what was stenciled in the background as well. So just choosing little sections of this to highlight, and it's one of the reasons I really like these sort of mixed up stencils, because there's all sorts of different bits and pieces in them that you can choose to create as a bit of a focal point. Then going in with this stencil, which is called a delicate face, to stencil in my face shape. Now, this is one of the reasons I really love making portraits with stencils. While I am practicing drawing faces, it's still a work in progress, and having a stencil like this where all the proportions are in the correct place, that you don't need to think about, you've got this lovely forward-facing face, it makes it a lot easier to then construct the rest of the face around it. One of the things I really like when I am drawing faces is to put some detail in the eyes first, because that's what really tells us we're looking at a face. So just using again my white pen to put in where sort of the highlights on the face would be, and then colouring in the iris using my green gel pen as well. So by stenciling out the face, it's just given me a starting point. Now I've used a Payne's Grey to stencil, so it's quite a well, it's a dark colour, it's not as bold as if I had a black, for example. So it's sort of that in-betweeny colour. Just using my Stabilo Oil pencil to use the face that I've stenciled as a guide to then create a face shape around it. And I'm just using really light layers of paint to create my skin tone. So it's a little bit harder to see on screen, but I'm really using minimal paint to spread this out and around, because I still want to see some of that texture from the stenciling in the background. I'm also, I really enjoy using Stabilo Oil pencil. It's a water-soluble pencil, so you can sort of see around the neck, for example, when my paint touched the Stabilo Oil pencil, it already gives a kind of shade to the edge, so it gives you that natural shading where it's going to be. Now I'm going in with my darker colour, so I've gone in with my lightest colour, now I'm going in with a darker colour to create my shadows as well. So thinking about what's going to be darkest on the page, adding in those lines down the nose to create that nose shape. And you can see from what I've stenciled on to what I'm getting now, it's becoming more person-like, I suppose, and giving a little bit more depth, a little bit more shape. It's not quite as flat on the page. Quite often when I'm doing my shading, I like to get my fingers in as well to rub the paint through, just to make sure it's all in the right place. Because I've added paint over the top of where I stenciled, I'm just going back in with the stencil again to make sure that everything's nice and dark where it was originally stenciled. So it's a great way about not worrying about when you're painting in the background. You can just see the difference. Just having that extra layer of black over the top suddenly pops those features out again. When I've finished doing my little highlights, then I was thinking about what I was going to do for the hair. So now I've sort of got my face in the right place, how I'm going to add that in. I also decided I wanted to put some words in this page. So this is another stencil called Mesmerise, and it had this lovely word down the bottom, so I thought I'd put that on her neck. It's a bit of a tattoo to sort of, because she's got such mesmerising eyes, that I wanted to have a little bit of focus on the page. So in the close-up at the end, you'll be able to see through that skin tone, you can still see the stenciling from the background. So while it's sort of, the face itself is sort of being pushed out, you've still got that combination of what you've got in the background as well. It's all visible. So I want to put a little bit of colour in her cheek. One side's a little bit darker than the other there. And again, just using my fingers to rub that paint in. Then firming up some of those lines with my black Stabiler Oil pencil. Putting a little bit of scribble, a little bit of shade around, just to darken up those edges. While the Stabiler Oil pencil is water soluble, it's very waxy, so just with the heat of your hand, you can sort of spread it around, and particularly because this paper that I'm working on has a texture to it, you get a beautiful texture on it. You can see as I'm painting in the hair as well, by having that water soluble pencil, is putting that shading into it. So I'm not just getting a turquoise colour, I'm getting turquoise with little shades of black and grey throughout. So she's got a very, very short bob cut. And again, going in to put in my detail, putting in a little bit of line work with a white pencil as well, to add some of those highlights to her hair and to her face, with something that's not quite as bold or as opaque as the white paint pen. So you're still getting those little shades of white, but it's not quite as dark as the other. Finally finishing off with my green pencil as well in her eyes, so you can get the close-up. So here you can see all that texture, you can see how the face shape's gone together, you can see the stenciling in the background, but how it's been pushed away by putting the image over the top, how that double stenciling on the face really brings it out into the foreground. So I hope you have a go at doing this. It's a great way to practice drawing faces and shading faces without having to sit there and draw everything from scratch. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the details below, and until next time, bye for now.